Neutral artificial intelligence. Does it inspire confidence? Does it inspire usefulness? Or is it just an ambivalent, indifferent meh? So this is what I'm trying to address, whether it is neutral. So AI researchers have been attempting to figure out how to encode intelligence, to achieve a level of intelligence that does not necessarily need to be hand-programmed. Every computer programmer has their own specific way of programming. Their nuances get entered into the code. Now, the problem is that this can become so embedded that the AI they are developing becomes maligned from their code. So it doesn't get into the final system correctly. Conventional programming also requires that every minute step is already known. Therefore, this grand assumption presumes we know all step-by-step intricacies of how intelligence works. Artificial neural networks are an approach to AI. They are arrangements of logic and weights or biases. How that logic and those weights are set are based on examples. So examples or training sets are used to indicate sort of how the neural network should work. The problem is that the examples themselves are selected by individuals, and those individuals may have their own biases or personal preference in the selection. Spiking neural networks aim to be a closer representation of how the brain works. And it's a different approach. So whilst there are many variations on the theme, the combination of excitatory and inhibitory stimuli to groups of neurons generates an output. A feedback mechanism indicates an approximation towards the right answer. This is intentionally vague and imperfect, but the spiking neural network is guided to the answer. The presumption being that the guide also knows about neutrality and avoids inferring its own bias. Generally for these networks, I've indicated a form of supervision in the way that networks learn. There are also unsupervised variations in which exploratory outputs cause changes to inputs. The expectation is that at some point, the output will converge on the idyllic answer. These exploratory outputs, however, are typically statistical approximations. The programmer of the code, the logic, the weights, or the biases, the stimuli, expects the approximation to be a direction towards the right answer, at least perhaps with some randomizations thrown in for good measure. When my youngest daughter, Scarlett, was born, she did not know about statistical approximations or how to carry out matrix multiplication on sets of weights. And as far as I'm aware, she does not have a line-by-line set of coding in her mind as to how to solve every problem. When Scarlett was first learning to move, even before she was born, how was she taught? By experience. Experience is what happens when we carry out activities. Scarlett is 2 years old, and so not yet at school. My wife, Kirsten, and I help and guide Scarlett and try to keep her safe from harm. But much of what Scarlett actually learns has been from trying things out herself. So she finds to experience what happens when. Now, at first, I imagined there was no knowledge of what to try actually means. Scarlett's first experiences were based on impulses of heat, light, sound, and chemical biological reactions. It was from the surrounding environment of her mother's womb. Scarlett's range of movement developed as each of her limbs developed. So we accept that there were some constraints imposed on Scarlett on what she could experience. Since birth, Scarlett continues to grow. First, she continued to rely, again, on heat, light, and now she gets taste as well for experience. She could also stretch those limbs beyond the confines of the womb. Constraints were beginning to relax. Our physical constraints and opportunities help determine whether or not we will be an Olympic medalist. Our imposed constraints partly rely on how we perform within our cultural surroundings. If we do well or wrong, there is feedback. Whether it is by praise, reward, success, failure, and sometimes punishment, the experience shapes who we are. Therefore, are we able to be neutral if we are something based on so many different inputs over time? We might be concerned about the potential rise of the robots. It isn't the mechanical robot per se, although we can debate it when a machine goes awry. It is the potential for harm or good of a system similar, equal, or better than human intelligence. That gives us cause for concern. Human intelligence already has the potential to enact a full spectrum of harm or good. We increase that potential as the population grows minute by minute. We display a dichotomy by engaging in conflict, yet caring for those affected by natural disasters. Could we design systems that could evolve to be neutral? What does it mean to be neutral? Is it a devil's advocate position, getting splinters from sitting on the fence, or to take up space but not having an either not positive or negative influence? Now here's where it starts to get tricky. Applying what we think we know about being neutral is hard, really hard. Consider a judge. After all, we expect a judge to be neutral to ensure laws are conformed to exactly as prescribed. It is not for the judge to decide whether the law is fair or not. Perfect laws have no ambiguity. This was the premise of Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. Those 3 laws do inherently expect conformity, but they do not handle a rebellious act. The 2017 Similar AI principles are a modern expansion of the Asimov laws, a set of 23 guiding principles for the development of artificial intelligence. However, just because it is written does not explicitly prevent it from happening, an alternative outcome. Likewise, the judge does not change the law. However, but it can still modify the outcome based on mitigating circumstances. Is this still a description of a neutral judge? A passion of mine are the emerging techniques using neuromorphic principles, using novel methods of being able to store and compute information simultaneously. The same electronic units may form a closer approximation or neural mimicry as to how the brain functions. Experience causes the same units to react differently to the same set of inputs. The issue, of course, is how to select the input streams that would generate an unbiased, neutral, but still useful AI. It sounds difficult to almost impossible, and we are not perfect. We aspire to create systems that are equal or better than ourselves. Yet we do not have an individual that has all of the relevant attributes. Not even deities are viewed as neutral, as they are said to have their own plan. Should this therefore suggest that an individual AI is unlikely to also achieve the desired neutrality? What we are looking for, though, is protection from ourselves. Mankind is great at inventing new tools. However, when Scarlett was learning to walk, she tended to fall first before eventual success. Scarlett breaks things before she builds. The question is, can humanity survive the breakages of the AI before it constructs its ideal persona? One or more entities that have humanity's best interests at heart without reducing us to a nanny state. We do not wish for the AI to wrap us up in cotton wool, nor force us into subservience or something worse. Experience has younger siblings, knowledge and understanding. If these are developed soon enough, then we do not have to experience jumping off a cliff to know that it will kill us. We say that children have very little fear. What they have is little experience, a quest for knowledge and a need to understand. As a parent of a young child, I would prefer the understanding part comes sooner than later. Likewise, in AI development, a focus on an understanding of consequences should take priority. An AI may be given access to a wealth of information from which to derive knowledge. Understanding for a machine is elusive. It's not just about calculating probabilities of outcomes and selecting the most optimal result. Even if it were, the number of different probabilities to be calculated may be so overwhelming, the calculations might not be concluded within a reasonable amount of time to be effective. To understand is to abstract oneself from the situation and consider a response or action. Will it cause unwelcome constraints and perhaps not be beneficial to others? A question to ponder is, how do we teach an AI to understand beyond the current technology of natural language processing? It is a fair assumption that at some point this century, engineers and scientists are likely to find a way to build one or more human-level intelligence machines. The diversity of these systems is initially limited only by human ingenuity, skill, resources, and that which our understanding of physics makes us conform to. No matter the rules put in place to control the purpose or the intention and application of these systems, there will always be a rebel or nonconformist that acts with ulterior motives. Biological evolution adapts at a slow pace. So it adapts because we have to try to survive and optimize or use our surroundings, but it's still slow. It has taken thousands of years for our civilization to emerge as it is today. And it's still not perfect. We still war against each other to hang on to or to spread our cultural ideologies. Are we so naive that by adding even more diversity, tinged with our own biases, that the human-level intelligence systems we create will arrive and integrate harmoniously as we would prefer, without conflict? If an alien intelligence, an alternative AI, wanted to coexist with humanity, we would initially expect that it should conform to a reasonable set of negotiated values in order to gain acceptance. However, diplomacy towards maintaining long-lasting peaceful integration may require incorporating alternative viewpoints. Development of AI, for whatever purpose, cannot be stopped. If at all possible, it will happen. Preparedness as to how we educate society to be ready for coexistence may present an opportunity for us to come together more, to learn from our warring mistakes, and to build systems that are an embodiment of a BFF, a companion that can argue, respond, agree, challenge, debate, learn, mentor. An AI that begins with tight constraints can have those constraints relaxed. Relaxation as it improves based on its activities it's allowed to experience. But be aware, for the terrible twos, the troublesome teenager, the rebellious young adult, the anarchist. We do not fear the child as she grows, we fear for them. We hope that our guidance helps them to realize and embrace ethical standards, to have a moral compass, a faith or belief system to fall back on in case of dilemma. Let's build an AI modeled on our best hopes and dreams for our children. Otherwise, if we could guide the AI towards neutrality, would this white elephant still be useful? Thank you.